Hey everybody, it's Chugga Conroy, and welcome to the final bonus video of Chrono Trigger. Let's kick this off by talking about the beta and unused content that I never had a chance to talk about otherwise. There are many Japanese gaming magazines that showed pre-release elements of Chrono Trigger. Many of these differences are very minor cosmetic things, so I'll just be talking about the ones that I personally find the most interesting. Chrono Compendium has scans of everything if you want to poke through it yourself. Some major ones include a drastically different overworld tile set, in which you see a lot of individual buildings instead of clusters of them, and this weird screenshot of what appears to be a volcanically active moon that Chrono and Marl are on. There's this floating glass island that looks downright cool, and I wish this made it into the final product. Maybe it could have gone inside the Black Omen or something? I didn't catch myself on this, but several comments pointed out that with the addition of the Dimensional Vortex, the box art was made real because the Snow Beast had that coloration in that screenshot and you're in a snowy field. And really, that's about it. Once I actually consulted my list of scans that had interesting stuff in them, I was surprised how much of this I actually got to talk about in the main release. Next up, what you see playing out on screen right now is the intro to the Super Nintendo version of Chrono Trigger. I chose to not open the series with this because I didn't want to outright spoil a lot of locations that we were going to be going to, and I felt like the anime intro just carried a lot more energy with outright showing you things that we were going to be doing. It's a great intro, and I'm sure it got lots of people interested in this game back in the day. While this is playing out, I want to talk about the PC version. Everyone's heard about how botched the initial PC release was. It's a port of the mobile version, which was in turn a port of the DS version. The graphics were all grossly smoothed out, it had many tiny little problems. They patched lots of things over time, and I still stand by it being a decent version of the game, but it's still not in the best shape. There's reasons why I didn't choose it, and I'm here to tell you how it's still very flawed and why I personally didn't pick it for this Let's Play. Some graphics were made pixel perfect again, but others weren't, and it's inconsistent. How bad is it exactly? Well, let's go through some examples. The title screen. The pendulum is out of sync with the audio. Everything about it is smoothed out, including the logo when it comes up. The title screen is one of the best things in the game, and they got every single thing wrong. You can't get a much worse first impression than that for super fans of the original. The game's intro sequence from the Super Nintendo version was put back into the game, but it has bug screen transitions where the screen flickers and the sprites freak out for a moment before it fades out. The transitions also go too fast due to faster load times, so the intro cuts out before the theme song is done, right before its amazing tension and release. The overworld and big open areas are actually widescreen now, and some overworld graphics even got redrawn to fit the higher resolution, which is very cool. But unfortunately, most areas aren't widescreen due to the playing field not being expanded to accommodate, so it's frequently not cool and looks the same as the DS version anyway. The options menu has been greatly stripped down with no ability to customize the text speed or the menu boxes. The anime cutscenes are the least compressed of any version, which is great, but two anime cutscenes that are in the PS1 and DS versions are inexplicably missing. There's no reason why this should be the case either. I've had comments from people asking why they didn't get an anime cutscene when I did and if it had to do with decisions they had made. Well, it is. It's tied to your decision to play the PC version. As I've said many times, the bestiary from the DS version is missing. It's very minor and certainly not all players would use it, but why remove it? It's text that's already written. These last few points were things that were fixed, and I don't hold them against the PC release anymore, but they're just so bad and I don't see them talked about enough that I just have to bring them up. For one, the word emoji in an official release of Chrono Trigger is repugnant to me. Second, they actually managed to botch something as simple as save points. They programmed them as solid objects that could not be walked through due to the port being designed for a touch interface. That's understandable, but for no good reason, they could only be interacted with from the top. That means that there were multiple save points that were impossible to use, just because they had something blocking their top side. There were 2 in a row in the Guardia Castle dungeon, meaning that dying to the dragon tank would send you back to the last time you saved before even the trial scene had taken place. That's a fight I could potentially see a first-timer not figuring out right away, too. The worst part was, before patch 4.0 came out, they said it would be the final update, and they released it without it fixing this. Thankfully, a few days later, they surprised us with a 4.1 patch and did fix it. With that all done, let's go into the game itself. Chrono Trigger's anti-piracy checks are pretty funny, as were a lot of games released around this era. They check to see if the memory exceeds what size it should be every time you go through a gate, meaning that if it detects a pirated copy, the time travel animation loops forever with the music looping perfectly. This song should sound familiar. The Singing Mountain appears in a Sierra-published Hobbit game for the Game Boy Advance that was released in 2003, meaning that it debuted in a commercial product in this before in any release of Chrono Trigger. It seems someone on the dev team was just very into Chrono Trigger and included it as a reference. I knew that if I was choosing the DS version over the Super Nintendo original, that I would have to include tons and tons of quotes that were very memorable to players of the original version, because I agree, having played through it myself, there's some real great ones in there that I am kind of sad aren't in this version. Some of them should have been replaced because they were unintentionally very funny in places where they shouldn't have been, but the original has a great script as well. And there is one utterly inexcusable one that I missed. Your death was owed to weakness. You got whacked because you're weak. Just the apostrophe "cuz" coming out of Magus's mouth. What a cheesy line. A final point about the Lost Sanctum that I want to talk about is the new Guardian might have been a reference to the Chrono Trigger OVA. In the credits scene, it shows a new emerging from the ground like Lavos, and it's able to use that fire attack that we only ever saw Lavos use otherwise. I don't know if it was an intended reference to make some dark, ultimately powerful new do the same thing that Lavos does as a reference to this, but it might be, and if so, that's a nice touch. Something that a lot of people asked for was for me to go back and do the fight with Lavos, ending Phase 2 with each and every party member to show their different text. These give a lot more insight into what Lavos might actually be, and everyone has different reactions to finding out what he is. It's a great detail that encourages replaying of the final boss, which, in a game like this that has so many endings that demand you fight it each and every time to see them, yeah, it was definitely good to have something like this. So let's go through those one at a time. Amazing. It possesses the DNA of every organism that has ever dwelt on this planet. Ayla no lose! At last, you meet your end, Lavos. Cyrus, stand with me in this battle. Wait a minute! Falcon Strike works on all 3 parts of this fight? I knew it would work on the arms, but... Serious? His head's not even close! I know the head barely takes any damage in this phase, but that's amazing! Falcon Strike is even better than I thought it was, and I already used the crap out of it all playthrough. I don't think we ever saw Lavos use Flames of War in the first battle. It's a single target fire attack, and honestly his least exciting move of them all. But hey, any information about Lavos, I'm sure somebody will find a theory in. Aw, Magus found another way to have a good time when he's trying to murder us. Specifically Frog. I mean, I could have told you that. That was Lavos' goal. Storing and analyzing the genetic code of every creature on the planet. He aimed to use it all to induce self-evolution into the ultimate form of life. His offensive capabilities are incalculable. My sensors are overheating. Ayla no run. Hate lose. Hate run more. I was given life by human hands. But life is life. I am no different from Luca and the others. This planet is my home. Ayla no lose. This Ayla home. Not Lavos home. Lavos lose. So, since the dawn of time, it has slept underground, guiding the evolution of this planet's life toward its own foul purpose. Such a vile being, we do not live for your ends. Ayla no run, hate lose, hate run more. We were but sown for him to reap all of humanity. Or rather, all life on this planet. Murderer. Will not be used by the likes of you. I hate to be that guy, but in the original translation, Magus's line is very different, and I'm willing to bet that many of you fought Lavos with Magus in the party because it just kind of makes sense from a narrative perspective for him to be involved in the big battle. Magus makes it sound as though Lavos was masterminding all evolution on this planet and is the entire reason that humans exist at all because it created us. That's not really what it is. It's just merely that it's allowed the planet to live on so that it could steal the genetic information and thus copy it all down by... I've always kind of interpreted it as you rejoin with the Earth at the end of your life, that would be when Lavos would actually have the opportunity to absorb you and copy your genetic information. It's kind of led a lot of English-speaking theory makers to trip over that line and then have to get corrected later, and it's just kind of a clumsy translation line. That's the only downside, though. They're all really great lines, and who doesn't love them? This last thing, I don't know if it's true or not. Some users brought up that Lavos' core being the right bit might have been it evolving in order to defend itself against any humans that might challenge it in the future. We all psychologically think the largest thing that stands in the middle is the one in control when that's not the case here. It's sort of a deep, high-concept sort of way that the design of this fight being a ruse bleeds into something very meta, and I like the idea. This next one is something that many people have requested. Shortly following the release of this video, I'll be making a public playlist that has all of the endings in Chrono Trigger for you to view them anytime you wish. Some people have told me that some endings are missing, and I can assure you that they're all there. You might have missed an ending by not clicking on the bucket at just the right time. And that's okay. This will make it convenient for you to see any that you might have missed. There's the attack where the center pod is not present. It is simply referred to as a pod. It is not the true form of Lavos. I want to add that even without Lavos using the attack I fear most from 65 million BC, I still had to heal up a few times in order to do this fight with how overleveled we are. That's the mark of a good final boss, one that makes you earn it no matter how high leveled you are. It can be made easier, and we are really good, but we're not unstoppable. And that's everything. I hope now you'll join me on the one final adventure that Chrono and his friends went on together.